Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to talk about a couple of random things that have popped up within the NBA draft sphere on the NBA draft show this week. We're first going to talk about the Jame Nnaji thing with college basketball, where Jame Nnaji, former second-round pick of the Charlotte Hornets, who has since been traded to the New York Knicks, he is going to Baylor, it seems, to play college basketball. So a player that has been drafted already into the NBA is going to go play college. We're going to talk about that. Seems pretty weird. Then we're going to talk about tanking and why the NBA seems to be trying to solve a tanking problem that to me doesn't really totally exist. But before we get there, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? I would officially like to petition the NCAA for an extra year of eligibility so I can go and earn some NIL money. I spent 2 years playing JUCO basketball and think I should have one more year to play.
I think you have 2 more years. Isn't that the thing?
I have no idea. So I was just hoping for one.
American University, call my guy. You can't go anywhere else. It's got to be American.
I would definitely. Coach Simpkins back at AU, my guy Jackie Manuel that played at North Carolina. Those are my guys, and I don't think they would take me. But if they would, I would love to come back for a season.
That's it. So okay, let's just kind of jump into this. But first, we're going to talk about the Game Theory Substack, GameTheorySamV.substack.com. Bryce and I do breakdowns of players all the time. Last week, I did Kingston Flemings. I did Keaton Wagler at Illinois, guys that are going to be NBA draft picks. What did you say, Bryce?
You did Quaintance as well?
I did Jaden Quaintance's first game. That's right. I totally forgot that I did that. Jesus. Today, or yesterday, rather, sorry, this is coming out on Tuesday. I did Keontae George as well. So it's a mix of NBA players, it's college players. We've got tape going constantly over there. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. It is the best way you can support the show. Over here at Game Theory Productions. Please go subscribe. It's $6 a month. I promise it is worth your time. And at some point, Bryce and I are probably going to do some Q&A stuff over there as well. We'll have some people just ask us questions and see where we're at on that. So GameTheorySamV.substack.com. Okay. Let's start and just kind of go down this road. So Jame Nnaji was selected, I believe, 31st overall by the Charlotte Hornets. There were multiple iterations of how he got traded eventually and things. I think the Pistons weirdly actually originally drafted him, and then the pick got to Charlotte somehow. He was drafted in the 2023 NBA draft. He was one of the youngest players selected in that draft class. It is now December 2025, and mid-season, Baylor, a team that desperately needs an interior presence. That is the thing that it feels like they need above all on their roster. They are 103rd in in adjusted defensive efficiency according to KenPom right now. It feels like a real issue when I watch their team that it's really Michael Ratai, the kid from Oregon State that is, more of a wing that's kind of playing the 5 a decent amount, and Dan Skillings, and they have the Caden Powell kid who I think is originally from Wyoming and Rice. They just don't have any interior presence. It's the thing that they need most. They just go out on the international market knowing that colleges are able to outbid whoever, and they try to go recruit Jame Nnaji. And the NCAA has apparently cleared Jame Nnaji to play. So Jame Nnaji is a player that has not played any NBA games. He was, for quite a while, a part of Barcelona's developmental team. And then I believe he moved over to Baskonia, memory serves. Trying to remember what tape I watched this year. I think it was Baskonia. No, he's in Turkey. It was where was he? I think he was in Turkey, maybe. Maybe he was in Turkey at the end of the year last year for a minute. I think he was in Turkey at the end of the year last year. But basically, Nnaji is a guy that was playing like real ACB minutes, for Barca. Occasionally in EuroLeague, he'd play like 5 or 6 minutes a game. And then this past year, moved over to Girona last season, was at 16 minutes a game, 5 points per game. Awesome leaper, serious athlete, great story. Like the kid, unbelievable story coming from Nigeria. And now we're sitting here. He was essentially like a developmental flyer for a team to take in the draft. I ranked him. I went back and looked in the 2023 draft, number 40 in that class. I thought he was taken like a little bit too aggressively at 31. There were people who had him as a first round pick that year. The reason I had him like a little bit lower was just he was exceedingly raw. He was a player that, like, I thought struggled to catch the ball at times, but is a serious run and jump athlete. Like, think like Mitchell Robinson when he was younger, DeAndre Jordan, like those guys, like he's on that level as an athlete. It's just like the skill level is not there yet. And it seems very clear he's very young in the game. So why Baylor wants him, very understandable. A kid that frankly, I think could be helped by playing college basketball and developing to like an American style of play. I think he might be better in an American style of play than what he is overseas in Europe. Probably because he's already been drafted. And obviously the NCAA is struggling with any sort of guardrail, any sort of rules that they're trying to enforce here in regard to NIL, in regard to transfers, in regard to eligibility. We see Diego Pavia, like the kid who finished second in the Heisman, doing a lawsuit in order to get an extra year of eligibility, knowing that financially, like, he stands to make a crazy amount of money by doing so. It is like the ultimate what happened to the game that I love thing with college basketball, where like all of these, it's like cool that guys are trying to get eligibility and stay longer, but like part of the joy of college basketball was guys stay for 4 years and then they move on with their lives. Like there's an educational component to college basketball. There's college involved, right? When you saw the Nnaji news, and we'll talk about like the, tale of what this is and what this means long term, but like as somebody who played college basketball, played at American, know everything that goes into that. Didn't play at American that long ago. It was, 12 years ago. Like, what was your immediate thought when you saw this?
Thanks. It's actually 17 years ago. But you made me, you thought I was a little younger than what I'm.
Math badly. No, I did math badly. That was bad.
My initial thought was, what is this can of worms that just opened up? And honestly, my initial thing was like, what does this mean for everybody else? So it was like, okay, is this just a second round pick thing? Is this just players who are international prospects that entered the NBA draft? Is this just players who haven't played in the NBA yet, even though he has played in like some NBA summer league stuff? What I actually tweeted back at you, I quote tweeted one of your tweets and said, what happens to his, like the clock or whatever on his contract, or his rights, or like, how long do the Knicks own his rights? And if it happened with somebody else, how long would that team own their rights? Does it ever go away? Does it stay? Like all of those sorts of things. And then I will say, like, this is like the spiteful part of me. This is, people asked for this, Sam. Like, and I know they're going to say, no, we didn't know it. No, whenever they opened it up, you knew it was going to go down this path because the NCAA or whoever oversees it, they were never going to be able to keep control of it. So as soon as they gave it, and listen, I'm all about college players making money. Like, go do your thing. Like, I love it for you. But there not being any real rules or governing body or whatever. Like, I'm not saying I saw, after a few years that we were going to get to this, but I don't know what people expected to happen whenever we brought in the NIL and everybody says, open market or whatever. Well, then people were always going to push the lines. Like, people were always going to continue to push and push and push. And so I'm not surprised we've gotten to a point like this. And so I get a little bit frustrated whenever I hear people scream and holler and be pissed about it, because all I heard 5 years ago was everybody screaming and hollering and being pissed that players couldn't make money and couldn't transfer and go wherever they wanted. And I'm like, okay, well, it can't be both ways. If you want the free market, then we're going to end up with this type of stuff. And so I don't know how they like. I know this is one of the tales that we'll get. I don't know how they rein it in now.
There's really only one way to rein it in, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'll finish on Nnaji real quick. So, like, what kind of impact do I think Jame Nnaji is going to have at Baylor? I think he will be really useful. I think he will be a starting caliber big in the Big 12, like day one. Will be really useful in that respect. I don't think he's like an all conference player from day one, even though he's 21 years old. I think there will be like a real adjustment period for him, probably in regard to fouling as well. That's one thing that I would really look at with him. But athletically, like, there's just real tools here. The fact that he got 4 years, I would expect that at some point he will be an all Big 12 level player. It could be as soon as next season, even when he's like 22 years old and figuring things out even more. But he's raw enough to where, like, I'm not sitting here saying that he makes Baylor like a top 10 team, even though he was like the 31st overall pick, right? I think Baylor will be good with him and is a better team for having had him. He will like fill their biggest hole and will be a starting caliber player, like filling their biggest hole. But like, I think that they're not like a Houston level contender in the Big 12. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to be, competing at that level. It's like Houston is still a better team than them to me. They're in like that next group of teams in the Big 12.
And they're must watch anyway for like draft folks out there. Like, obviously Cameron Carr has been maybe the biggest riser outside of Kingston Flemings so far this year. And then Tunde Yosefu is also a potential first round pick, one and done, whatever. Like that's a team that people should have been watching. I mean, I don't mean to tell you guys who to watch, but if you're interested in the NBA draft, this is a team you should have been watching anyway, because they have 2 potential first round picks. And then now, obviously, I would assume people want to just get eyes on Nnaji just to see what it looks like. So this is a team you guys should be watching regardless. So I don't know what their schedule is coming up out of break here, because sometimes these teams have a couple lighter games to start off.
So they have Arlington Baptist last night that they played
Monday night.
And then TCU, Iowa State.
Oh, Iowa State. Yeah. January 7th. Yeah, there you go. Iowa State on the 7th, Houston on the 10th. Tune in. Those are great games to watch.
To me, like Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, those 3 teams are still like the class of the Big 12 this year. BYU, Kansas, Texas Tech, Baylor in the next tier for me right now. But just to like kind of speak to where this is going. Now, let's start with college first, I guess, right? So my read on this from the NCAA, my read, I'm not sitting here saying I know that, like I know, but like my read on this, having talked to a lot of coaches about this, like literally my Christmas morning, because this happened on Christmas Eve, right? I got at least 10 coaches texting me, asking me about, oh, like, what do you think of this player? What do you think of that player? Because they saw the Nnaji news and they were like, oh my God, like we have to see if we can add anybody mid-season. Like we have a roster spot. We can add somebody mid-season. Let's see if we can do this, right? Like, what do we think of like Gabriel Procida, who,
all roads lead back to Detroit. All roads lead back to Detroit.
They really do, because they took Procida and then they traded him to Utah, right? So like, one of those guys where it's like, okay, like Procida would absolutely help your team. You'd be amazing in college basketball. But, I have no idea if he's trying to do this. I have no, like, I can tell you you do your information, you do your work talking to agents and things, but like I can tell you he'd be incredible. But like high school players, kids that, you know, went through the early entry process, like some folks were like asking me about RJ Lewis. It's like, I don't know if RJ Lewis is eligible. I'll talk about that in a second, like in terms of whether or not I think he would be eligible. But like there are just so many avenues where coaches here are trying to figure out what the like baseline is. You know what I mean? And because of that, they're going to push it at the end of the day. Like I know Tom Izzo got really frustrated.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this
yesterday, where he was like, yeah, I haven't talked to Scott Drew about it, but like, you know, he basically said he was disappointed in the fact that Scott Drew would do this. Like, I don't blame Scott Drew or, you know, their GM, Jason Smith, or anybody for going down this road. You're trying to win. Like you're trying to put food on your, you know, table for your family, and you're trying to, you know, Scott's probably got a job there for life, but like they freaking brought a national title to Baylor, but like everyone's competitive in this thing. Like any coach that wants to go out and be like, yeah, let's go get Jame Nnaji. Let's try and get creative and trying to find an avenue to get not like an edge. It's not on the coaches to me. It's on the NCAA. And this is where the lawyers will come tell me like, oh no, like it's not on the NCAA. It's just what do you expect them to do? They're going to lose all their cases in court anyway. Like, you know, they're going to lose all the antitrust cases they put together, everything like that. There's the very real answer here is that you're going to have to collectively bargain at some point is the reality. You're going to have to do like non-employee collective bargaining. And I know that they are not excited to do that because of what the implications would be in terms of making these people like, you know, any sort of like employee, you know, relationship, right? But you're going to have to do it is the reality. You're going to have to come up with some sort of set of rules that are collectively bargained, period. It's the only way this is going to work. And I'm sorry that like the NCAA, it feels like has been waiting for governmental guidance on what to do here. And they've been trying to like wait for the government to come through and save them. And because they've been waiting for years upon years now, it feels like 2 or 3 years, it's just created all of this uncertainty that has led to this. You're just going to have to collectively bargain. I'm sorry, guys. Do a thing where you get 5 years to play 5. Like you get the extra year. That's your win. If you're a player, you get an extra year to potentially make money. You get 5 years after high school. That's it. And you get 5 years to play 5. And that's great. And you can make exceptions for, you know, Mormon mission kids. You can make religious missions, whatever you want to call it. You know, obviously the Mormon religion with BYU, for instance, is the most prime example of something that would be affected by this. You could do, there's a kid at Green Bay that I think was like in the Israeli military or whatever. If you want to make like a military exception, like that's fine with me too. Bernard James at Florida State, I think is a good example of this that was drafted many, many years ago. And he was like 26 or 27 or whatever. So like, I'm good with that. But you got to do something that gets this under control. I don't really care if you get the money side under control. Like, that's fine with me. These kids can make as much money as they want. If schools can continue to raise $30 million for their roster,
sure,
on top of the $20 million,
that's on them. How they spend their money is on them.
Great. I don't really have a problem with that. If they wanted to limit a free transfer to one time, you get one free transfer and then you have to sit out. I'm honestly good with that too. I do think there should be a like sense of freedom for at least one of these. And obviously there should be exceptions if coaches leave.
Coaches leave 100%.
I'm all for that, but these feel like common sense solutions here that can be collectively bargained on some level.
I want to speak to that real quick because this is a perspective that I actually truly have as a player. People will say, "Oh, you signed with a school, not a coach." Like I couldn't disagree more. So I won't call him out. He's still somebody I talk to this day. His son's actually a really good high school player right now. But the assistant coach that recruited me, like I committed to and signed with American because of him. And listen, Coach Jones texts me on Christmas Day and I text him back and I love that dude and I owe him so much. But ultimately, I like committed to the assistant coach. He's the one that was recruiting me the most. He's the one that I had the best relationship, all of that. My point is he left He left before I got there. And I'll be honest, Sam, I was swimming a little bit. Like, I was a small town Kansas kid going to Washington, D.C., and the coach that I had spent 90% of my time building a relationship with was not there when I got there. And I'm not saying the other assistant coaches weren't there for me, and it ended up being a great experience. But my whole point is here, don't tell me that a kid shouldn't have the opportunity to transfer out of a school when the coaches that brought him there are no longer there. Like, I fully support. I like the, hey, you get one free one, and then anytime your coach leaves or gets fired or whatever, you get another one to go somewhere else. Because listen, that is why you go to a school. There's a whole lot of other aspects and locations and academics and all of that. Obviously, American was an academic school, and that played into my decision. But ultimately, that assistant coach is the one that sold me on going there. And like, it's such a huge aspect of it. So I kind of like what the structure of what you've talked about so far in a CBA, because I'm with you. Like, to me, it is on the school. Like, you want to play this dude $1 million in the portal, and then he ends up being your 11th man. That's your fault. Like, you screwed that up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you figure that stuff out. But the transfers and the eligibility and all of that, like, we got to get some guidelines, because I also agree with you. I love Tom Izzo. I think he's an incredible coach. And if he wants to do it a certain way, like, I respect that. Like, if Scott Drew's job is to win, like, his job is to win games. If he wasn't winning games, the same people screaming about this would be the same people screaming for his job. So you can't be mad at him for doing everything he can, pushing the boundaries till the NCAA tells him to stop, to go out and put his team in the best position to win games.
Yeah. So like my read on where the NCAA is on this is like, you have to try and get in within 5 years of like whatever your high school equivalent is internationally. That's what it seems like, right?
Sure.
You know, it's not like a 27-year-old long time overseas professional, you know, in the NBL. Like Nathan Sobey over here, who's like 35 years old in the NBL. Well, I guess Sobey went to college, so like Sobey's a bad example of this. But like some college player, some player over here in the NBL who didn't play college, who, you know, would theoretically still have eligibility, but is 30 years old or whatever. Like, that player should not be able to go and play college basketball, right? And it seems like the NCAA so far has not allowed any of those guys yet. They have not allowed anybody to like enter the draft, stay in past like the NCAA's deadline, and then go back, right? So like, that's where when people bring up like RJ Lewis, and I brought up RJ Lewis because like, this is going to be interesting to me because he's the most obvious example of somebody. Like, RJ Lewis right now is not currently on a 2-way contract, I don't believe. He is, I think, even, I don't even know where he's playing, like with the G League right now.
It says he's a free agent right now. So it looks like he's not currently even on a G League roster. Is that right?
I mean, maybe they're trying to go down this road, you know what I mean, of getting him eligible for college again, and whoever his representation is trying to figure this out, right?
Yeah. So for what it's worth, it looks like there was some preseason games with the Celtics, and there are no G League. There's nothing G League wise for RJ Lewis. Yeah.
It seems like the NCAA does not really care about guys that sign E10s based on a couple of guys that got seemingly are going to get eligible based on previous decisions. But I think that the RJ Lewis one would be interesting because Lewis went through the deadline as an early entrant, decided to get past the college deadline. Like, the difference for Jame Nnaji is Jame Nnaji was never actually subject to the college deadline as a player that was not in the NCAA, right? So it just never applied to him, really. With RJ Lewis or somebody like him, I bring up Lewis because he's like the easiest example of somebody that I would imagine would try to get college eligibility back, because he made a horrible mistake going through the draft process last year that made no sense whatsoever. And now we're here and he's an unrestricted free agent, apparently. But because he went through the early entry process, I would wonder, or I would bet at least, that the NCAA tries to hold to that as an idea. I think that would make sense for the NCAA. And my read is, so far, nobody has gone through the early entry process via the NCAA and then jump back in, right? The final one would be that they haven't let anybody who's had like a real NBA contract so far in, like a two-way or, somebody, I think Joe Tipton at On 3 reported like Trenton Flowers has interest. And then, for what it's worth, I will say this, like, I got asked about a lot of players on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve in the United States. I got asked about like well over a dozen players. And nobody asked me about Trenton Flowers, at least. Like, no college coach asked me about Trenton Flowers. Joe Tipton reported that there are a bunch of schools that are interested in Trenton Flowers, who just played in an NBA game 3 weeks ago.
I was going to say, so for those that aren't familiar, like Flowers has played, it's only 30 minutes, but he's played 30 minutes of NBA regular season basketball and 1,600 G League minutes.
Correct. The G League, I think, doesn't matter for what it's worth.
Sure.
Like, I think they're letting G League kids in. I think it's like the NBA side that they're going to hold to. Matt Norlander has said that there are 5 schools that were on that list of 10 that have had no contact with Trenton Flowers, according to the staffs. And then Tipton has since like retracted it essentially in his reporting. So I don't know how the NCAA would react to having played NBA games. My guess is they would try to hold to that. The big one to me, though,
real quick, NCAA, Flowers also didn't play college basketball. Like, Flowers was the kid that enrolled at Louisville.
Came over here.
And then ended up going to NBL. So just so everybody's familiar, also not like in the Nnaji ilk, was not, adherent to the NCAA deadline, and he actually went undrafted. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. He was not a college player,
but has played NBA games now.
Correct.
So to me, like, the very clear line in the sand, the NCAA has to have, I think, is if you have gone through the college early entry process, you are not eligible. And if you have exhausted your eligibility in college, you are not eligible. Like, those are the two things that I feel pretty strongly they have to go hard and fast about, because if you don't do that, then like the NCAA's self-imposed draft withdrawal date
doesn't matter.
Essentially is meaningless. And like, you have to, if you're a college coach trying to build your roster,
college coaches would also support this, right? Like, they don't.
College coaches absolutely want guardrails on this stuff. Like, there are some college coaches that will take advantage of the rules and like see what you can come up with and try and get creative. But like, they absolutely want rules.
This would be impossible to build a roster if all of these kids could stay in until the draft was over and then could return.
The natural next endpoint for that would be that a player stays in the draft, gets picked in the second round, then like returns to school immediately. And if he just like doesn't like the situation he's in, right? And then we're just doing like college's farm systems for NBA teams. And maybe that's where this goes at some point, but that feels very complicated. But more than anything, like, college coaches that have no idea on how they'd be able to build their roster at that point. Would truly have no idea. On top of it, that would be like Andrei Stojakovic, right? Like, I just want to give like names here. Like, Andrei Stojakovic, like, would have the ability to get drafted like 50th overall and be like to an NBA team, no, I'm not taking a two-way. And then like would be able to force his way through the draft process. Like, if a team wants to take him at 50th, and then an NBA team is like, well, if you're not going to take a two-way and you're just going to say you're going to accept the qualifying tender, or whatever, then it's a non-guaranteed deal. You have to make the team out of camp. If you don't make the team out of camp, then, we're probably just going to cut you. And then you want to play an NBA game. And that seems to be our standard right now. Don't really care if there's E10s involved, which is essentially what the qualifying tender is, the non-guaranteed E10. That's why you have to hold fast to this rule. Like you have to hold fast to if a guy has gone through the early entry process in the NCAA, that's where you have to like fight it, I think, because that player has made a conscious decision. He has made a choice. He can't go back in. He can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think that is a thing that they should be able to legally fight, I would venture.
So that's only that would be interesting too, because I mean, how many non-college entry players are we going to have this year in the draft? Just a hand. I mean, but my thought is so many of these overseas players are now coming to college basketball because the money's so good. That actually then puts them in a tougher spot with this. Like they could go into the draft, get drafted, and then decide that they wanted to, like, just the different paths would be a little bit different now for a player. You know what I'm saying? Because if you never go start your college clock, you could leave that kind of on the back burner and stay overseas, enter the draft from that avenue, and then still get in if you didn't like where you got drafted, like essentially what Nnaji did. So,
yeah. And so this is the big one that I'm going to bring up now, right? Okay. So I actually wonder if the NBA is going to have to get involved a little bit here on this. I don't think the NBA cares about like the Trenton Flowerses and the, Jame Nnajis and whoever, right? Like I just don't. What they care about is like AJ Debance, right? So this is completely theoretical because it's so easy to bring these two people up, because like Ryan Smith is a well-known donor at BYU. Everybody I know who knows Ryan Smith, like that works for the Jazz and everything, like speaks so highly of Ryan Smith. Like I am in no way, shape, or form accusing Ryan Smith of even plotting something like this. I'm just like purely using this as a theoretical example of something that could happen in the NBA, right? So like, if that line doesn't hold, where guys can enter early, or guys go through the early entry date and then decide to go back to school, right? What if you have a situation like AJ Debance, who doesn't like his situation, doesn't like the teams that might take him at 1, 2, or 3, and he decides, oh yeah, I'm just going to go back to BYU for a year or so, or whatever. He'd be passing up somewhere between $13 and $10 million, $9 million, something like that. But Ryan Smith is a big donor at BYU. He's a billionaire. He could easily make that like applicable. And again, I'm not in any way accusing him of doing this. I just want to be 1,000% clear of this. I'm just saying theoretically what could happen in a circumstance like this. Say AJ Debance, say Ryan Smith just goes to AJ Debance. Ryan Smith owns the Utah Jazz and says, hey, we're going to try and get the number 1 pick the next 3 years to get you. Stay in school until then. We'll try and make it work. I will make sure that you get paid 13, whatever your NBA contract would be, $13 million. Because being able to get AJ Debance, if you're an NBA team, is well worth $25 million investment, right? It's not even a question. So couldn't Ryan Smith just go to AJ Debance at that point and be like, okay, you entered, you didn't get to where we're picking, just go back to school, I'll pay you, and then we'll like re-enter the draft.
So
right?
this is what I was kind of quote tweeted to you the other day though. So let's say it's the whoever gets him, the Wizards. I think the Wizards would keep his draft rights though, right? Because like that's what happens if you draft and stash somebody overseas. And if he decides he wants to go back to college in that scenario, then the first year on his rookie scale deal just doesn't happen. Like he doesn't start his clock on. He can't go back to college for 3 years and say, okay, well, that's 3 years of my rookie deal, and then I only have to go play for 1 year with the Wizards or something.
To me, this is where the NBA has to get involved. Correct. It has to like actually do this, because I believe when Red Auerbach drafted Larry Bird like a year early, right? Because like there have been draft and stashes before, and like it's happened previously. It just doesn't happen anymore. Larry Bird had to sign before the following draft. Otherwise, he went back into the draft. So on top of it, the other piece of this is that, maybe they would say it'd be similar to Bogdan Bogdanovic, where team holds his international rights the entire time. Bogdan Bogdanovic was drafted at the end of the first round. He stayed overseas, I think, for 3 years, if memory serves. Wasn't subject to the rookie scale anymore. What if AJ Debinsa, forget like the Ryan Smith piece of it, who's just involved in Utah and involved in BYU, and it would be potentially tampering. And again, that's just like one avenue that could get funky. And hopefully Ryan Smith wouldn't do that. There would obviously be a massive investigation if an owner decided to do something like that. But let's even do it this way. Say there's a player in an agency that wants to try to break the rookie scale. I guarantee you that some donor at BYU would be able to get AJ Debinsa to $10 million next year. Because they want BYU to be great. If you have a second year AJ Debinsa at BYU, they'd be laughably good. And I bet they could get him to stay a third year. What if AJ Debinsa stays in school for 3 years, makes $45 million or something because BYU gets the money over, and then Debinsa is no longer subject to the rookie scale. And he says, hey, I want a max deal to come to the NBA. I want max money. That kind of breaks the rookie scale at that point, which is what the NBA does not want.
Yeah.
The NBA wants cost-controlled guys when they're younger. So I actually wonder if the NBA is going to have to get slightly involved here, because I'm bringing up theoretical like holes that you can try to poke in this. And it's unclear if the NBA, if you'd be able to do this, if you'd not be able to do this. I've talked to a lot of CAT people about this now, and a lot of CBA people about this now. They're not really sure how any of this would go.
Well, now I'm trying to figure out how a college could just get an NBA team to like almost lease a player to them. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you drafted.
It's absolutely an idea that got sent to me.
So I'm trying to think.
Could you basically, as a college team, say that like
you're not using Dalton Connect? No, he doesn't. That's a bad example.
Say that the Lakers wanted to use USC as a like farm system, basically.
Bronny, go play for USC and for this year, since you're not playing minutes with us.
We'll draft you. You're going to go to USC. We'll make sure USC pays you like real money. Bronny obviously went to USC, so that, would be a really easy point of comparison. Instead of coming to us immediately in the NBA, go back to USC and develop there for a couple of years. I don't know if the NBA would even mind that, to be honest, but I don't know if like the NCAA would appreciate, like, why would you want to do that if you're the NCAA? So like, to me, the hard and fast rule that you have to stick to here is if a kid has gone through the early entry process, that kid has to be ineligible at this point. That's the whole reason I bring up all of these theoreticals, is that if you don't stick to that, it becomes impossible to really deal with this, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
That's where you start getting into like, oh, LeBron like didn't play college basketball, theoretically has college eligibility left. Again, that's where like the age thing would come in. Hopefully they would stick to, within the last 4 or 5 years, like that you've gone through the high school process. But like, it gets really hard. It gets really, really hard. I think if you don't stick to some of these things, you have to have a spine, you have to have a backbone, you have to fight somewhere. I think that's where they're going to have to fight this, is if you've gone through the college early entry process already, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that sucks for like somebody like RJ Lewis, who maybe he is able to get eligible. Maybe the NCAA doesn't fight this. If I was his representation, I would absolutely be fighting, trying to get RJ Lewis back to college basketball next season. And I bring that up as not because I know something, just like is the prime example of a player who made a mistake last season going through and was an All-American last year. Probably shouldn't have been, but was an All-American last year, as was named, and would have a big market in college basketball next season if he was to go through it.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's
absolutely crazy. So I think the NBA if the NCAA does not stick to that rule, that's where the NBA would have to get involved, I think, and really start to figure out how to handle this. I mean, anything else college wise here for me, I don't know. I mean, we can give a list of names that theoretically might be able to do something like this now. I want to be clear that this is not intel based. This is just theoretically guys that have been drafted and stashed, guys that are, have not played in an NBA game and could theoretically be eligible. Michael Foster, Dink Pate, Gabriel Presida, Khalifa Diop, Matteo Spagnolo. I had people asking me about Judah Mintz. As a kid that again had gone through the early entry process, but that's where the next fight will be fought, is if a kid has gone through the early entry process, has not played in an NBA game, can that kid go back to college? The RJ Lewis's, the Judah Mintz's, etc. Right? That's where the next horizon is after the Jame Nnaji decision. But I think there are a lot of people rightly concerned about this across college basketball. I would prefer Jame Nnaji not be able to play college basketball, is where I'm at. Once you are drafted into the NBA, once you have decided to turn professional, I think you should not be able to play college basketball.
Yeah. I think in general, that's where I land as well. But there's also this component of, we see guys get drafted all the time to then go play elsewhere outside of the NBA and make money. And when college became a money-making organization, I feel like they opened themselves up to these type of maneuvers. So, yeah. I can see the argument for it still.
Yeah. And overseas kids, if you want to come to college basketball, now that we have an understanding of what the money is if you come to college basketball, once you sign a real contract where you're making over X number of dollars, you can no longer come to college basketball. I have no problem with kids that are making $50,000 or whatever for a full season, and they get room and board or whatever. Those kids want to come over. I'm not going to argue with that. That's totally fine to me. And a lot of the kids that come over are like that, for what it's worth. But once you sign a real, oh no, I'm making serious, significant money, professional contract overseas, that's the line, right? That's where you're not able to come back anymore.
Sure.
And I think that's that's a reasonable thing. We're giving these kids enough time to figure out how to get on the collegiate track, knowing that that's where the money is. They have reasonable notice at this point. There have been enough European players, particularly, that have gone down this road where I think that there are tried and true examples of how to figure it out and how to get the right representation, how to get the right guidance in order to get yourself eligible for college basketball. I think that we can set a guardrail there too and make it so that you sign a real contract overseas, you cannot come over and play college basketball.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think what we said, 15, 20 minutes in, you said it, there's got to be hard and fast rules and lines and bargained and agreed upon and all of that. I won't get into the specifics of what it is, but I told you, I've had conversations with coaches about a certain topic, and I had one tell me one thing and another one tell me something else. And it was
yes,
that like the lines are so blurred, the coaches don't even always know for sure what the answer is, and it's like, man, and I'm not even saying it's their fault. Like, I don't know that there is a line on the conversation that we were having. So it's all over the place and it has to get reeled in some capacity.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out to the folks over at Mizzen Main. Let's be honest, most dress clothes are uncomfortable, they're high maintenance, and they just don't feel very good to wear. You spend too much time ironing, dry cleaning, or tugging at stiff fabrics. That's why Mizzen Main is just the best. They make classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel great. Mizzen Main invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and since then, they've perfected it with modern fabrics. Their pants and shirts look refined, yet they're stretchy, lightweight, wrinkle resistant, and completely machine washable. They are the best to golf in. That is something that I can attest to. I have been shopping at Mizzen Main since before they were sponsors of the show. And when you put their clothes on, you'll feel a difference instantly. It's professional style that's actually comfortable, whether you're in the office, on the road, or even out on that golf course. Right now, Mizzen Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com, promo code GAME20. That's Mizzen, spelled Mizzen, and Main, MAIN.com, promo code GAME20 for 20% off. Mizzenandmain.com, promo code GAME20. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. Okay. So the next thing I want to get to is this weird, like, tanking problem that the NCAA or the NBA seems to be trying to solve that doesn't really make sense to me. According to Shams, at the Board of Governors meeting on Friday, the league proposed a few ideas, such as limiting pick protections in trades to either top 4 protected or top 14 protected or higher. That would remove the potential for what Dallas did to get Derek Lively, where they tanked the last few games of the year in order to make sure they had the best odds of keeping their pick. Utah this year is in a similar position to this, where they are top 8 protected. They're in that ballpark right now, where their pick may or may not transfer based on the decisions they make down the stretch. He said one proposal was no longer allowing a team to draft in the top 4 2 years in a row, or locking lottery positions after March 1st. My issue with all of this stuff, like trying to find solutions to prevent tanking, and I get that they're trying to do this because of the gambling aspect on some level, and like you've jumped in bed with sports books and you've taken money from like gambling entities and things like that. And again, me personally, I have no problem with it. I'm somebody who gambles. I can't gamble in basketball, but like I have no problem with people who gamble. Just you're never going to hear me say otherwise. That's just not my thing. We've had gambling sponsors on the show before. We will have them again at some point, I'm sure. I don't have an issue with it. But when you go down this road as a league, I'm sure that they feel some sort of need to keep the integrity of the league or something like that. I don't know. In these games, my issue with it is just like, if you're betting on these games late in NBA seasons, you kind of know what you're getting already. Like you have the information at hand if you want it. I'm a big proponent of making sure like injury reports are active and like making sure people know who's not going to play and who's going to play. Like that makes sense to me, but you have an understanding of what's going on here. And players, by and large, Terry Rozier accusations, and they are accusations, excluded, players generally don't tank. Front offices and the such are the ones who tank by making life harder to win, right? In order to eventually get better picks or better assets, whatever you're trying to do, right? So I don't really think that like NBA players over the grand scale are out here like tanking their performances. A lot of the time, like the players, if you're tanking for a draft pick, you'd be like trying to draft their replacement a lot of the time. And that's just like not how the minds of players, by and large, work. So to me, like when I see all this stuff where we're trying to like and we'll go through these suggestions like one by one, obviously, and talk through it. But like, I just think that they're trying to solve an issue that doesn't need to be solved. I think at the end of the day, like they've made winning the lottery exceptionally hard as it is. The problem for me, and this is why we did that segment a couple of weeks ago, where like I went to bat really heavily for the fact that I think teams aren't aggressive enough in trying to go get undervalued like NBA assets. Forget like draft picks and things like that. Like if you believe in guys, like go get them like off of NBA teams and go trade for them and go bet on your evaluation skills on identifying the next star. Imagine if you had traded for Keontae George last summer from the Utah Jazz, right? Like I'm sure that Utah, if you'd offered Utah like a first round pick and something else, like Utah almost certainly would have had to look at that with how Keontae George was playing at the end of last year, right? But if you really believe in Keontae, go make that bet, right? I just think that the NBA has already made tanking so difficult. It's why Washington, like still, much as I like some of the guys on their roster, like they still don't have a guy, like they still don't have the number one guy that's going to lead them to the next, conference finalist. The Jazz like have never moved up in the lottery, I believe. The Spurs got lucky. The Rockets got lucky. Like these things happen, but the NBA's already made it so hard to tank. And it's why you have these teams that are continually floundering at the bottom of the standings year after year after year. I just feel like they're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Bryce, like what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, so part of this makes me feel like I'm just out of touch because of how I consume the game, right? Like I watch games to analyze the on-court play. And even if we get a game into March where the Wizards are playing all their young guys, like I want to see all of those guys play. So I'm still going to watch it a little bit. And I just watch with the context knowing like, hey, whoever they're playing, I probably shouldn't evaluate. I probably shouldn't base my MVP conversation on how the Nuggets and the Thunder played the Nets in April, whatever month, whenever they're playing all 5 rookies in the starting lineup or something, right? Like I just go into games knowing that do we need all 30 teams being competitive? Like, is that a must? Does the league have to have that? And then my other question is like, right now, who's the team that's pissing everybody off? Like, who's the team tanking right now through this part of the season where we're getting close to halfway that everybody's upset about? If anything, Brooklyn and Utah are winning more than what they want. We mentioned on yesterday's episode, we enjoy watching the Wizards right now, and they've kept CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton, who I don't know how much they've won them games, especially Middleton, but they've kept those guys around. And so here's the other thing is everybody says, well, it doesn't happen in other sports. I don't know. I listened to a Chiefs podcast where every second it's talking about like wanting to see the young players and jockeying for draft position that they wouldn't normally have. And that's a very extreme example because listen, they weren't going to make the playoffs anyway. But once they didn't make the playoffs and Patrick Mahomes got hurt, like people ain't tuning into Chiefs Raiders in the last week of the season. And so like, that's what this is ultimately about is viewership and the viewing audience and the numbers and all of that. And again, I'm just completely out of touch because Sam, I don't care. I don't look at the viewership numbers. Maybe they're that bad that this is that big of an issue. I just struggle. Teams are going to be bad every year and teams are going to go through this process where it's like, okay, we have to bottom out and then we got to build it up. It just, to me, it is what it is. And I don't know, like some of the things are interesting to me, but tanking being an issue isn't like at the forefront of what I think could be one of the biggest issues in the NBA right now.
Well, the Raiders, like according to Jay Glazer at Fox, like they literally apparently
pissed off their best player. They pissed off their best player because of this.
And wanted to shut him down for the last 2 games, and like Crosby like didn't want to do that. and they ended up putting him on IR, and I don't know where that'll land, right? But Jay Glazer like went on TV today and said like he's frustrated with the fact that they shut him down, and he's been playing through injuries throughout the year, and he wanted to continue to play with like through the injuries, right?
Because they're jockeying for number one pick. So listen, it's not as much in the NFL, but I don't want to hear that NFL teams don't play their backup quarterbacks or their rookie third round receiver who hasn't played all year or whatever in these situations. Like, don't tell me that they don't protect some of their best players in these situations. Like it happens. I don't watch baseball enough to have any idea if it happens in baseball, but I would assume baseball teams bring up their minor leaguers at the end of the year. Like, surely they do it. To me, it's smart. Like, yeah, let's evaluate these guys in games that don't matter as much.
Baseball's
different though. They're different with draft stuff, right?
They have their own issues as well with like service time before you hit free agency and things like that as well. And it becomes a little bit more complicated in that respect. Like the Pirates have the best prospect in baseball, Connor Griffin. And like, it's like a stunner that they're debating letting him win the shortstop position out of camp this year. Because if they hold him back until May and he doesn't win the Rookie of the Year award, then they would get him for an extra year.
Sure.
Basically.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's right. Baseball's is different. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Like but it's more of a service time issue than it is a draft issue because it takes forever for these guys to come up as it is by and large.
It's still the same point. Like, ultimately, the issue that people have is like the competition level of games, right? Like that's ultimately what the issue is. And I don't think the NBA is the only sport where, especially when you get into the end of the season, you can watch crappy games. I'm going to watch an week 18 game between the Raiders and the Chiefs that is disgusting. And like it just because of extenuating circumstances of an injury and an underachievement and a team that's not very good that wants to have the number one pick. It's not the only sport that has ugly, uncompetitive games down the stretch of their seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Just some of these ideas that Shams brings up, I do want to talk about at least, just because these are the things that have apparently been floated, right? Limiting pick protections to either top 4 or 14 or higher, which would eliminate the problematic mid-lottery protections. Don't think that happens so rarely. It's happened like twice in the last 4 years or whatever. This seems like such a limited problem that we're trying to solve.
I also, because of the stepping rule and what it's got into some people, like I just wonder how much. I'm interested to see where the protection stuff goes. Maybe I'm biased to this because I saw what Troy Weaver did with Detroit's first round picks and just absolutely tying them up for multiple years because of protection stuff. But yeah.
The next one is no longer allowing a team to draft in the top 4 2 years in a row. That seems completely crazy to me. I get it that like the Spurs got Wemby and Dylan Harper, right? Like cool, but that didn't even and Steph Castle, I guess, like 3 years in a row in the top 4. And then like look at the Rockets picks. Like all due respect to the Rockets, they've done an amazing job building this team. But like it's Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Reed Shepard, and who's the fourth one? Why can't I remember the fourth one off the top of my head? There should be a fourth one here.
Amen
Thompson. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, Amen Thompson. My brain like totally froze there for a second.
I was like, surely you said Amen, right?
No, I didn't. I completely forgot. But like, so I was thinking of like the players that haven't really been worth top 4 picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Rockets haven't built their team on the back of their top 4 picks. They built them on the back of like doing well. And like Oklahoma City hasn't built its team on the back of top 4 picks. They got Chet at number 2, but like, look, they got Giddey at 6, and like Giddey became Caruso, who's like their 5th best player, and that's what we're worried about. Denver is Jokic, who was drafted in the second round, Jamal Murray at 7. The Knicks, traded for all their guys. Detroit Cade is the only one in the top 4, right?
Well, they dropped
Ivy and
the rest of them.
Ivy, Holland, and
that's all 5s. And then Duran, even if Duran's been their second best player this year, he was late lottery that they traded up, traded back in to get.
Yeah. So like, again, I just don't know what problem we're trying to solve here with this. You've already made the lottery so difficult to win. Why are you trying to solve it again?
The other argument, I guess I would say, is the Spurs nailing 3 straight picks have given us potentially an incredible rivalry over the next 5 to 8 years to go up against the Thunder. Like, that ended up a good thing. Like, it's great that they ended up drafting so well with back-to-back-to-back picks. And then now they're coming up and like just surprise. They're the best story in the NBA this year. So why is that an issue? Like, why are we trying to take that away?
Yeah. And then locking lottery positions after March 1st, like, I don't know. That's a pretty significant portion of the season to just be like throwing out the window to me.
Doesn't that make it worse?
Teams improve. Like Portland got better last year, late in the year. Like, why are we trying to like just throw away the portion of that season? Like, I think the league would say that the idea is that it's already indicative of what it's supposed to be, and thus, we lose all the shenanigans down the stretch of guys sitting teams sitting guys and things like that. But you're literally throwing away like a quarter of the season.
I don't think I agree with that, though. Like, the Wizards are still going to trade all of their veterans and play the young guys down the stretch in the same way, right? Like, maybe some teams would, I don't know. But the only
think about the Pelicans this year, right? Like, I think the Pelicans are going to continue to try to win.
Sure.
Down the stretch if they can, in order to not have their pick go as high as it does. And thus, like, I don't know, that feels like a situation that is the antithesis of what the NBA is trying to avoid. There'd be no reason for the Pelicans to play hard down the stretch otherwise, other than just like playing hard down the stretch. They're already out of the playoffs. Like, they're still going to filter through and try and see what their guys have.
And like, wouldn't Utah then be tanking earlier? Like now you would just have Utah tanking the start of the season instead of the end of the season to keep their top 8 protected. Like, that's what I heard someone the other day say, like, we'll shrink the game to 55 games and then teams won't have time to tank. And I'm like, no, they'll just tank the offseason altogether and won't even come into the season competitive, knowing they have no time to tank later in the year.
Yeah. No, that's also true.
The only thing worse than the end of the season tanking is the first month or 2 of the season tanking. Like you start on opening night and the Jazz are rolling out have already traded Nurkic and are resting Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George and rolling out like this roster. Like, that's way less palatable to me than them doing it at the end whenever they're trying to get there, or the Mavs doing it for 1 game at the end of the season like that. I mean, I'm not saying that was okay or I like that, but it wasn't a season's worth of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The only thing I haven't even completely workshopped is like, what if you just said, hey, there's a minimum games. You have to hit this many wins, or anything you're under that, we actually, decrease your lottery odds in some capacity. Like, just a blanket number that you're a threshold you're trying to get to. And if you don't get to that number, we are going to take the current odds you have, and we're going to maybe we only ding your chance at the first round, the number 1 pick, by a percentage per win you're under that number or something.
Maybe, but like, some teams are just bad.
That's true too.
Like, I don't know if we should be hindering, the Washington Wizards, who are probably going to win 12 games this year or whatever, because they have a team of 22-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. This feels like the NBA trying to solve a problem that like doesn't exist. It exists as being larger in their minds than it does to like anybody else's mind, I guess.
Now, here's my problem, Sam, I guess, is we get way too good at basketball to spend as much, for me, I don't want to tell people how to fan. I don't want to tell people how to podcast. Do you? For me, my frustration comes from there's too good of basketball players, basketball games, all of that to spend as much time and energy as there is on this topic and some of the other ones. Like, I do think if sometimes like just embrace the game for what it is and enjoy the greatness that we get to watch almost night in and night out right now. And again, maybe that's easy for me to say, because of how I consume the game, but I very rarely walk away like upset or disappointed from a night of basketball. So,
yeah, no, I agree. Very, very strange to me, but we'll be back to talk about actual players next week. There are just a couple of weird things that have happened that affect the NBA draft. And this tanking thing certainly affects the NBA draft. This Jame Nnaji thing absolutely affects the NBA draft. Yeah. And there are things that are frustrating and make our lives more challenging in a real way. Bryce.
Well, no, that's my biggest thing is like, man, I don't want to have to learn figure out all of add a whole nother pool of guys into potentially back into the draft and evaluate. Like, can we just keep it a little more simple?
You know how much easier this year has been? Like, we just have to pay attention to college basketball.
Yeah.
It's so nice. We have to watch the NBL occasionally.
Every
We got to
once in a
watch
while.
Dash Daniels and Karim Lopez, but like, by and large, we're just good.
Turn on Sergio every once in a while, but yeah, it's mostly college hoops.
Yeah, watch some Adam Atomna. Like, occasionally we got to peek our heads overseas, but yeah, like right now let's keep it to where it's at. That'd be great.
I have enjoyed that aspect of it.
Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, Game Theory Substack, where at time of this release, I should be done traveling for a while. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get into some video breakdown, start contributing again over there. And then, of course, the Game Theory Substack or podcast with Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I will have rookie rankings out today for sure. So go to The Athletic, read the rookie rankings. Wrote about Cooper, Kahn, and Max Reynaud, actually. We haven't talked about Max Reynaud on the pod yet. Max has been very fun.
My guy.
Yeah, that is your guy. Go to the Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. We appreciate everyone immensely. I might have to do a Jame Nnaji breakdown on the Substack, was what I was thinking earlier this week.
It'd do numbers.
It might actually do numbers. People trying to figure out what's going on with Jame Nnaji. So, might actually have to do a Jame Nnaji breakdown. We'll see. Go to the gametheorysamv.substack.com site. Hit the subscribe button. It's the best way you can support the show. We will be back on Friday with more stuff on the NBA. We're definitely going to talk Wizards. We'll talk other stuff that happens in the NBA. We're gearing into trade season potentially, Bryce. Like that could actually be quite fun for us.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I'm excited.
We will be back with more. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.